Hey, Jason, I want to jump in. I'm really looking forward to this conversation just about where people are, the state of the job market, et cetera. And I kind of want to jump in right into what you're seeing, rise of unemployment, rise of AI, and people moving into fractional work. Tell me about kind of just perspective in, 2026. What are you seeing?
Yeah, good to see you too, my friend. I've seen a lot of people that have come from corporate America that are now had enough of it or they've been laid off, right? So there's two tracks to that. One is, they're just tired of the rolling layoffs and people blaming AI for this, et cetera. And I think even on the company side, the companies and the corporations that I work with are more used to hiring fractional. It's going to address a acute need and then kind of go
Hmm.
on and go to the next one or whatever. But the rise of this whole fractional professional, if you just look on LinkedIn, has grown like 2000%. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of these fractional professionals now. I don't know what you're seeing out there, but that's at least what is inbound on my LinkedIn page.
Yeah. And you shared a kind of an anecdotal statistic with me. What was it like? Pre-COVID, fractional was hardly used on LinkedIn, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah. I read, I'm going to get this wrong, but I read some statistic the other day that back in 2019 when COVID started, there's a couple hundred people with the fractional titles on LinkedIn. And, I'm heavily on LinkedIn. Now that's over 200,000 fractional executives.
Mm,
Right. So it's exploded.
yeah.
I just read an article yesterday on Apple News and it was talking about the gig worker economy also exploding. Right.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the details, but it's definitely on the rise. It's definitely something that people should consider to kind of spread the risk, something I would do. Right.
Yeah. And to answer your question as to what I'm seeing, and I've been seeing this, I've been seeing it, I don't know, probably a decade, maybe longer even from my own journey, but it's the restlessness in where people who are CEOs, who are executives, they run their shit and they run it, but they just get to a place where personally and on the human side of it, they feel, hey, I want to do something else. I want to take that leap.
Yeah.
I want to get into my own thing, my own consulting, my own advisory. And to your point, that rise of fractional work where it's like, oh my gosh, I can have 3 clients and make more than I'm making at, my CEO job. But where I love to have the conversations with people about it is even some of these people who you would think they are the most confident people in the world. They've got it all figured out. You get on a call with them and you realize we all deal with insecurity, and so do these people.
Yeah.
And it's the fear of taking that leap, the fear of leaving what they know, what they trust, what they believe they know, what they believe they trust, and actually taking a leap into, either becoming their own boss or doing their own work. And I love helping people with that because it's really about helping people see their identity and see their own value.
Yeah. And you and I have some working history together. I think you're a good person for that and help people kind of decide and take that leap as well. Yeah, I've seen all kinds of things. I have a friend recently who worked at the same job for 15 years. She left the company, was lost, right? Didn't have her network
Mm,
built up, didn't have the confidence, couldn't even get her resume together, et cetera. She's now doing well. She has 3 fractional clients, kind of took her about 4 or 5 months to package that up and get going. But for me, it's less about the making more money part. It's about the security of knowing I have a plan A, B, and C with
yeah.
3 clients, right? You can always lose a client and get another one when you're fractional. You lose a job, you're back on the street networking, trying to apply for another job. So I would never go back to that kind of corporate America.
Yeah. And to that point, and you kind of led with this, is how, it's better to have the conversation about what you want to do, about kind of controlling your own destiny, controlling your own future. Because if you are in a corporate job, even if you're not CEO, but you're in a high level position, they're going away so fast right
Yeah.
now. And whether it's AI or whether it's tech, whether it's just mismanagement of company funds, people are losing their job left and right. And like the example you said a minute ago is that people are left without even knowing what they've attached their identity so much to the title that they had that they've just lost.
Yeah.
And I think you said that. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah. I have another quick example. I won't name any names, but I'd say probably Fortune 1000 CEO
Hmm.
had his company acquired, was at the same company 20 plus years, making great money, reached out to me because I had done a webinar on fractional consulting and starting up your own consulting business, asking for advice. And I was just thrown back by that. Right. I was like,
Mm,
wow, here's, like you said, like, here's a person I admire. I'm like, man, he's a awesome CEO. And asking me, hey, Jason, I've never started a consulting business before. I'm scared to death, but it's something I want to look into. And so I think at all levels, whether you're first starting out or you're the Fortune 1000 CEO, there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it imposter syndrome, but self-confidence, self-worth that you need to take that leap, And I know some of the things that you're doing with your clients and in consulting and stuff has definitely helped coach those people into the right direction to feel better about themselves and the direction they're going in.
Yeah. And it's funny, some of the work that I do is around storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's helping brands tell their story. A friend of mine said to me last week, how many businesses fail just because they can't tell their own story? Well, that applied to a person is also true. Can you tell your own story? And if you stay ahead of it, you're not unemployed, you didn't just get fired, it's much easier to see it. It's much easier to extract your identity away from the title that you have, to be able to actually see your value, to see your worth. Then you're forced to do it, like the example you gave a minute ago. And it's great that, your friend is got 3 clients, but those first days are tough. First month is tough. It's really, really tough when everything is pulled out from under you. You don't know who you are. And you said something a minute ago, imposter syndrome exists with everyone. And I, you work with a lot of founders and CEOs. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and people getting into that. And just had a call 2 days ago with a person who she's crushing it. She does marketing and branding in New York City. She's crushing it. And even she admits there are days where she's like, what am I doing? Can I really do this? And I'm like, go talk to your clients. They love you. Let that fuel your passion and your fire. Because we all encounter those moments of imposter. Can I do this? Am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? We're
Yeah,
human.
absolutely. I think it's important to have either a network or a coach or advisors. Through all of my entrepreneurial journey, 15 to 18 years of starting software companies, I always had a board of director or advisors or coach or something on the side. So, somebody like you, I think in the corner of people wanting to start this stuff is good. Sometimes you just need a friend, right?
Yeah.
Especially a lot of these CEOs that I do consulting with when I'm talking about corporate strategy stuff, I end up becoming their therapist part-time, right? I know you see a lot of that too, right?
Totally.
So you can imagine that you just got laid off or you're considering going into this coaching kind of consulting fractional role, whatever it is, it's going to take you a little bit to get that self-esteem in place where you can go market yourself, feel good about yourself and have a path, So I think a coach like you can do really well with that. If they don't have that, surrounding yourself with those people that kind of lift you up, and every time I've gotten lonely or against the wall, like you said, I went and started having coffee meetings with clients and they built me right back up again,
Yeah. Having a thought partner is
Mhm.
so, having somebody that you can, anytime we try to do things in isolation, not only is it harder, many times it's impossible.
Yeah.
So having a thought partner, having an advisor, having somebody that, even to your point, just, networking with people, but anybody you talk to who's ever hired an advisor, or coach, consultant for themselves, almost all of them will tell you it's the smartest thing they ever did.
You make a great point.
Yeah,
I just want to tie
would
this
absolutely say that.
to software. I just want to tie this to software, my background. You make a great point. I would never start a software company without a co-founder. Why would you
Yeah.
start consulting without a coach, right?
Yeah.
Nobody can do it alone. Nobody
Yeah.
can do it alone. So having the right network, the right coach, the right friend is the way to go.
Yeah. And, you do become a friend. You do become their therapist because it's part of it. It's not just, yes, the networking and the building of a personal positioning statement, and all those things are absolutely part of it. But sometimes you just need to say, I'm having a really crappy day. Can you lift me up?
Yeah.
And sometimes you actually need somebody to be a football coach for you. Somebody
Mhm.
like, hey, you said you're going to do this thing and you haven't done it yet. Why? Tell me why. So I've just found that doing this type of coaching work, doing this type of advisory work for individuals it's 80% cheering you on, but 20% of the time it's, are you going to do the thing you said you were going to do? And without having a person in the corner as an accountability partner, you're just left to your own devices and it makes it just so much harder.
It's just like a fitness coach, right?
Yeah, totally.
Some people are really disciplined to go work out by themselves. I'm not one of them. But if you
Same.
have a fitness coach, you're accountable, whether it's strengthening or weight loss or whatever. And I think the same goes for business. And just like you have a fitness plan or a schedule, you have to have a roadmap or a plan to be a fractional. And so many people that I come across on LinkedIn and stuff are just lost, but it's good to know that there's people like you to do that and, get them on the right track. But yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. first call I do with my clients is we build the plan.
Yeah.
Because, without the plan, without the roadmap, you're just, you're basically driving around in circles. So you got to know the direction you're going. You got to be able to see on paper, I'm going to do this first, this second, this third. So it's super important to have that. I'm
So
curious.
go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
No. I'll let you go. I'm not going to always edit this out.
Oh, okay. No, so it's fine. No, I was going to say, you and I have worked together before, and you've been a good therapist and co-founder for me for a software company that we worked together on, and we stayed friends. And I think what people might be interested in is the coming up with the initial plan part is one aspect of it, but also, staying on board as a guide. What happens next? Like, what does it look like when you're working with somebody 3 months later, 90 days, 6 months, that kind of stuff? What are those kind of key triggers that, you can tell is working?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think so. A client that I have right now, I've been with for 5 years. We could not have predicted at the 90-day mark or even the 6-month mark the questions and things that would arise at this point because it's too far into the future. So I think one of the things is, especially, in the beginning, is setting benchmarks. And for some people that I work with, it's, I want to leave my job. Okay, great. One of the very first things I say is we're going to set a date. It can't just be a thing that you're going to do in the future. You want to turn in your letter of resignation by December 31st of this year. Great. Now we have something to work towards. So there are actual, literal benchmarks, signs on the road, if you will, to help people through that. But what's interesting about working with people who are taking the leap from corporate to entrepreneurship or in a fractional role is there are just benchmarks on, did you get up today to do the thing you said you were going to do? So point to the conversation I was having a minute ago. I always guide people to make non-negotiable time every single day for what they do. And I always tell them to do it first. Don't wait till 5 o'clock in the afternoon after you've dealt with meetings and Zoom calls and all the stuff that happens at work. You have no energy left at that point. Before you go in, before you have your first meeting of the day, have that meeting with yourself, and just making sure that when you have all the energy, you have that first cup of coffee in the morning, you jump into you first. And when I'm working with somebody, it's what's the next thing you have to do? So if we've got a positioning statement, we've got everything sort of dialed in for who they see themselves as. Great. What are the fractional opportunities that you are now going to go after? How do you start those conversations? How do you have a conversation by this time next week with somebody? What does it look like to elegantly leave your position? Because there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I always say, don't ever quit on a bad day.
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing you can do. But just helping people literally step by step, guiding them, kind of walking hand in hand from where they are now, how they see themselves to absolute deliverables and benchmarks in a 90 to 180 day window to get them to where they want to be and they can launch into this new thing.
Yeah, you reminded me of something, and the resigning, quitting, and taking the lead part. I think if you have a good relationship, some people may not be thinking about this, but when I left my career to start my own company, the CEO was so thrilled for me. He was an investor in my first business and became a customer, right?
Yes.
So I walked out the door with more confidence, a customer and an investor. And not everybody's going to get that, but some people might not be thinking about, you might be in a position with your current employer to turn that into a part-time fractional consulting client, start your business, and build up that way. So you're right. Never quit on a bad day. People.
Yeah. I see more of that actually. What happened to you?
Yeah, good.
Is if you do it right, if you do it, it happened with me. When I left radio, one of the very first calls I got was basically consulting the media company that I had left 6 months prior. And it's just because, some of this is just human relationship. Don't burn bridges, that's why I say don't quit on a bad day. You may be having a bad day, which is resulting in your desire to do this. That's fine. But one of the first questions I always ask people is, do you really want to quit? And some people say they do and they don't. But there's a different, I don't want to say a difference maybe, but there are people who just know they're built for more. And then there's just people who are actually okay just staying in a corporate job until they're either fired or they retire.
Let me ask you a question
and that's okay.
off of that you just made me think of something. How have you seen, like I went full blown in it, I went full blown in it. I remember We were pregnant with our first kid. We have 3 kids, and I took my wife out to dinner, which we never could afford to do back then. And for us, going to like Outback Steakhouse then was a celebration, right? And she's like,
Yeah.
we're like eating dinner, and she's like, by the way, what are we celebrating halfway through dinner? I said, unemployment. I just left my job today. And I had a supportive spouse, which I think is also important. And she backed me, and I've had several companies since, many of these companies. But do you feel like, a person can start this on the side of their day job, or should they just jump in? What would you think? That
I think there's a couple of considerations there. I would always say if someone is feeling the calling inside to do their own thing, calling inside to enter fractional work, consulting, advisory, like that doesn't go away. It
Mhm.
only gets louder. So, if you have financial runway, if you got 3 to 6 months savings and you're willing to blow through that, sure, take the leap.
We had none of
But
that, by the way. So when we did that the first one, we had none of that. We had credit card debt. So that's funny. Yeah. But I would rather,
yeah,
I'd
I
advise,
mean,
yeah, being smart about it. Yeah.
yeah. But for a lot of people, it's interesting. For a lot of people, the better path is, finding something on the side, starting to do that work, even if it's just building the network, even if you leave your job and you don't have, a single client, having some financial runway helps. But if you've done the work to build the connections, build the network, actually talk to people, you know your value, you know how you can sell yourself, then when you wake up that first morning and suddenly you don't have, a 9 to 5 job. So 8, 9, 10, 11 hours of your day is now not consumed by a job, and you can devote that time to yourself. You're just going to get clients a lot faster because you just have a path and you have
You're
a
working on
plan, but you've
yourself.
also, you've done the work. It's hard for me to argue what you did though, because sometimes it is better to just take the leap and just do it. Because
Yeah.
then the forcing function is you have to figure it out.
Something
Now
something you said to circle back to, if I can interject, is I think this is great advice, by the way. You're spot on, is having a routine or a schedule and sticking with it. So I believe in this wholeheartedly. I invented a habit tracking app called Tractionary. I'm not plugging that here, but tractionary.com if you want to check it out. And I built this app for my son's college age girlfriend, who's having a really hard time staying focused and going after goals. And she asked me one day, Mr. Weaver, like, how do you stay so focused? How do you get so much business? How do you do this? And I said, it's really not that hard. I keep a routine. I know that I get up in the morning, like you're saying, from 6 to 8, I'm answering emails, drinking coffee. From 9 to 10, I'm selling the next wave, even if I have a lot of business. And I have my entire schedule set out like with military like precision, every single section of every single day, what I'm doing. In days where I don't have a lot of consulting business, I double down. I'm the company, I'm the business, I'm selling myself. So I think goals are achievable because they can be broken into steps, and steps are just a formation of habits, and if you follow those habits, you'll achieve those goals. So I think that's probably this big piece of advice I just want people to remember that you just said, which is make your own schedule, make your routine and stick to it.
Yeah. And you can make that routine today. You can make that routine with what you do at your corporate job. That's why I said, get up in the morning and do your stuff first. And actually interesting to just build off of the daily habit. Something that works really, really well is do proactive work first and reactive work second. So like you said, cup of coffee and answer emails. I would say get up in the morning, and answering an email a lot of times will be a reactive action. So get up in the morning and do stuff that's, I don't know, work on your own statement, reach out to people. You and I have talked about this before, the difference between working in your business and on your business.
Right.
Work on your business first. Make the connections, build the marketing assets, whatever it is, and then leave time in the day, middle of the day or in the afternoon to work in your business, serving your clients. But you got to do you first. And you're super, super smart that, there's always a sales mechanism. There's always I'm growing my business intentionality to what you do every single day, even when you have a full book of business. What if you lose 2 clients tomorrow?
And one warning to give people, because I have a couple fractional consulting client friends that get these big clients, and do very well with it and get paid a ton of money. And then they lose that client, right? And I always tell people from my software days, what I remembered is you're always working on your business. You don't let the foot off the gas pedal when you have a ton of business, you're making a ton of money, because there's rainy days, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I always have a system where I'm working on the next package, the next client, the next thing, because shoe could drop. But the benefit, if you're doing well with fractional, is you probably have a client A, B, and C. And you're right. I do the sales in the morning, the busy work during the day, send out proposals at night, and
Yep.
I think it's really important that people walk away understanding that even when the getting's good and you're making great money, you're still selling yourself.
It never stops. It
Yeah.
never ends.
Right.
So you are running your own business. You're running the business of you, just no different than if you were running your business for somebody else. You're just now, you're running your own show, you're running your own business, and the ceiling is limitless. You can take it as high as you want. Only limitation is your bandwidth and desire.
Sorry to interrupt you. A question that I get often, I'm going to let you answer this, Michael, because I know you answer this too. Do I have to be good at sales? Right. I'm not good at sales. I can't market myself like you guys or Jason or stuff like that, or Michael, how do I put myself out there? But I have a lot of people that want to do the fractional stuff, but they're like, I'm not a good salesperson. What's your advice for that?
One is in the moment, meaning you are on a call with a prospect, and it's really easy if you're not comfortable with sales, or you don't want to do sales, or you don't like sales, or it makes your palms sweat, or whatever it is. It's really easy to make those conversations way heavier than they need to be. What I always tell my clients is that when you're on a call with a prospect, listen more than you speak, which is just maybe good life advice, but listen more than you speak, because when a person feels heard, there's a lot of trust that's there. And the only difference is you're basically coaching them. They're telling you what they're going through, their struggles at their business. They don't love their job anymore, they're afraid they're going to get laid off. And if you just shut up and listen to them, they feel heard. They feel like somebody actually understands what they're going through. And then at the end of the call, all you got to say is, hey, this is how people work with me. I think you'd be a good fit. I'd love to help you on your journey. This is what it looks like.
That's terrific advice.
That's it.
That's exactly what I do. I knew you were going to say that, by the way. So that's terrific advice. And I always tell people that be the informative colleague, right? Not the pushy salesperson. I don't think I ever have proactively gone out there like a salesperson. I help people. I listen to people. They ask me for a proposal. I never push it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It was something that I had to learn pretty quick. When I was running one of my businesses, which was a podcast coaching business, helping people with their podcast. When I started doing my first calls, I was so nervous at the moment of transition. How do I take them from the conversation we're having about their podcast to a proposal? And one, just starting to do it, you just get better at it. But I realized, like, if this person says no, or if I'm too expensive, fine, I've got another call tomorrow. Like, fear and scarcity will drive you in terrible ways. But if you go into every call just knowing you're going to listen, you're going to help people, you're going to coach them on that sales call. And then at the end, you're just making an offer. That's all.
Yep.
And, and one of the things, and I'll say one more thing to this, one of the reasons why the very first thing I work with somebody on is either personal positioning or their own value, their own identity, is when you understand your own value. And sometimes that seems like, I'm a CEO, of course I understand my own value, but do you, when you're competing for your own clients? When you understand your own value, your disposition starts to sell.
Yeah.
How you show up on a call starts to sell. You don't have to have sales experience. I mean, if you have sales experience, great. But sometimes that can be a negative because you become too pushy. So listening more than you speak, hearing what they're saying, make them feel heard, and then knowing your value at the end of the call so that when you throw that offer at them with a price tag, you just know you're worth it. And that's super important.
Amen. That is terrific advice. I've gotten in this practice of, with AI, doing the AI note taking stuff. And probably a few weeks ago, I updated my own consulting website, halo.ceo. And I went through Claude Cowork and I said, go back through the last 2 years. I've been doing the AI recording for a long time, and listen to my meetings and conversations. What am I good at? And it surfaced some things that I've been blind to, like, hey, you had this conversation with Michael and you're talking about how you do coaching for, fractional chief product officers, that kind of stuff. And it just pulls some things forward that I was unaware of, I know you do that too with your kickoff meetings and your schedules with these folks, but I think you're right. If you identify, if a coach or, some way you can identify your skills, your confidence levels through the roof walking into a room,
And the greatest indication of good sales is your own personal confidence.
Yes.
Having worked with a lot of salespeople, when their confidence is low, they don't make sales. When their confidence is high, they make sales. So I would say when you make a sale, get on a call, like as soon as possible. because you're way more likely at that
Oh
point to
yeah.
make the next sale.
When you're on cloud nine, that's good advice. Yeah. I do that too. That's good advice actually. Like some days I don't feel like selling. Some days I don't feel like posting on LinkedIn. Some days I don't want to do a video, something like that. Some days I'm in a really good mood. I got paid a little extra. I had half a drink of Jack and Coke or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
those are the days that I turn it up a notch, and I think that's terrific advice to give these folks. Yeah. Good day.
And so let's wrap this up. Any parting thoughts on just, where you're at, what you're seeing, anything to share with anyone?
I know there's a lot of people that want to take this leap, and I just want to put out there that you and I have worked together as co-founders of a software company. You really helped me kind of focus, and there's been times where I was, as a founder, wondering, questioning my worth, what we're doing, et cetera. I know we've moved on to other companies, but both stayed in touch, and I would encourage anybody that's looking for that guidance, to reach out to you. I mean, you've been a terrific friend. I know I've went to high school with your wife. I know you guys very well, and I think you're a tremendous coach and mentor and a good friend. And I would say, if you're thinking about taking the leap, you don't have to do it alone. You have people like Michael out there to do that, and I would encourage you to reach out to him. If you're watching this, and anything I can do to help on the product side or software or anything like that, I'm here as well. But I really enjoyed this discussion today, and I hope people take you up on your offer.
You can be reached at jason@halo.ceo.
Yep, .co,
Correct?
not .com. That's like a video game. So
Yes.
.ceo, like Chief Executive Officer. That would be great. I have a bunch of software platforms to check out on that website too. But Michael, it's been terrific talking to you today as always. So.
Yeah, same. And if you're looking for me, it's just michael@sharkeyhelp.com. That's how you can find me. Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime.